Hello, Story Seekers. I'm Ben.
I'm Nico, and you're listening to our favourite part of the week.
Stories, discussion, and a high likelihood of gratuitous obscenities, all in the service of a bibliomancer. This is the Tiny Bookcase.
We're doing things a little bit differently this episode. Ben and I are going to subject ourselves to the gamut of questions usually reserved for our guests.
So we'll open up nice and fast. The first story you wrote that actually meant something to you.
That's so tough, isn't it? Mostly because my power of recall is terrible. Like, I can't remember most of the stories I've written for the podcast until I go back and hear a bit of it and I go, oh god, yeah, that one.
I guess it's sort of like if it passes the sort of memory muster,
Yeah,
then does that mean that it means more to
it
you? I
meant
don't know.
something, yeah.
That's potentially a slippery slope, that approach, but go with it. Like, what jumps out when you think about it?
So I was probably about 13 and I wrote a parody poem version of the Nativity story.
Ooh.
So just using the elements of the Nativity, it was really really long, pages and pages and pages of poetry. And I showed it to my granddad and his wife, and they sent it to the bloody local paper.
Oh, really?
And then they said that they couldn't print it because of the content.
You got censored at 11.
Yeah, they were really proud of me, and it sticks out as something I thought, it was very witty, at least for a child, and, and yeah, it was just full of things that even now I think some of the jokes are still the jokes I'd write.
I really like that. I think, and also just because we've seen recently your the way that you write more epic comedy poetry,
Yeah,
and really weave narrative into it. Like, this is something that you do still do, and
yeah,
it does sort of like flow out of you very easily. Is at least you make it look easy anyway. And that's an exciting talent to own, and I think to have known that you had it from when you were 11 is really great. And that little bit of recognition, albeit from a family member, and actually, I think it's way cooler that the newspaper they
wouldn't
type
publish
it.
me.
Yeah, I feel like being unpublishable because of your sort of gratuitous jokes at 11 years old is actually an aspiration.
Yeah, I'm basically a modern day John Cleese, mate. What can I say?
Oh no! Get ready for some
I'm
failed marriages, my friend.
I'm not, because he is very funny, but apparently not a great bloke. Sorry if you're listening, John. You're probably not.
Oh no, surely not. Is John Cleese not a good bloke? Thought all the Pythons were okay.
I'm sure they're all fine. You hear a lot about a lot of celebrities now, don't you? They say, "Oh, they're a terrible bastard." So maybe it's just the rumblings of that I hear. I'm sure
Potentially.
it's sound. He was a Python.
It's. I think we might just be sort of showing our sort of Englishness there. I think potentially.
Well, you know, man was in Life of Brian.
For me, I
Like,
think it's that, like, what first jumps into my head when I think about this. It's a piece of fiction I wrote whilst at university, and I was writing I guess it was sort of getting towards a novella. It was probably like half a novella. It was
yeah,
too long to be a short story, too short to be anything else really. And it was this sort of vaguely waffling piece of crap that it was a cyberpunk noir about a sort of like a drunk detective, and there were some jokes in there about sadomasochism and BDSM.
of course.
And I couldn't really tell you much of any of the themes or anything like that. But the reason it sticks out for me is that it's the first time I wrote something and gave it to someone who had the power of life or death over it. I gave it to a supervisor on a module that I was working on, and they like pretty bluntly tore it a new one, and
Yeah,
then I went away and rewrote it, and then they tore it a new one again, slightly less that time. And this went on for about 3 or 4 times. And then it was sort of time came to submit it. And the last bit of feedback that I got was sort of saying, "Oh yeah, this is good. I like these themes. I particularly like this bit, this bit, this bit." And when I sort of got it back marked, this lecturer had just torn it a new one again,
Oh,
despite having
what?
despite me having made all the changes that they wanted me to make, and some of the criticisms were about the way that those changes affected the story and the narrative flow. So it's not a very positive experience that I'm recounting to you.
No.
It's actually me knowing that, learning in that instant that I should just be going with my own gut, with my own instincts.
Yeah.
Take notes, sure. Let people give you feedback, and be able, but also be able to discern like what is constructive feedback and
Don't
what's
compromise your vision.
don't compromise your vision. Also, don't let somebody else sort of vicariously write your story for you as well. Um, like both sides lose respect for each other in that situation, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so I think being able to sort of accept that I do need to get better at it, but also that there's sort of a mental fortitude that goes on in that process, which I had to sort of learn from that. I feel like I've applied that consistently and grown from that seed during this podcast experience.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one as well. Like when that's later in life than I was expecting you to say actually, because obviously you were writing before that. But
Mm.
it's the lesson learned there that's important, really, isn't it?
I think
Not
so.
the story itself.
I suspect. Well, I mean, we asked this question to our guests, and quite a lot of them do cite instances where they learned something from it. I
Yeah,
don't think I don't think many people are like, this was perfect, and this is why I remember it. This is
yeah,
why it means something to me. It's typically the start of a journey. Like yours, for example. We were saying that's a talent that you discovered and have polished since then.
yeah.
Um, for me, writing is largely about getting better at it and trying to make a story as good as I can possibly tell it. And then once you've told it, it's sort of done.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of feeds quite nicely into sort of my answer there. I think. But
It does
yeah.
it gets me thinking about a bunch of things. Like there's a bunch of times that I've written things or that do stand out as memories. Like I've got a really strong memory that like makes me angry from university. We were putting on a production of The Tragedy of Medea, who is the wife of Jason of Argonaut fame, and the daughter of the granddaughter of the sun, because mythology.
Mm.
Um, but we were talking about how to introduce the play, and I wrote a rowing song, and the only bit I remember is the first sort of pair of stanzas, which was under stormy skies the Argo sailed across the seven seas to the island at the end of earth to fetch the golden fleece. And it was all meant to be very rhythmic, and we would all row to it. And the only bit of feedback I got really was a lecturer who I did not get on with saying, "I don't like it. Who else doesn't like it?" And a girl put her hand up. She said, "Why don't you like it?" She said, "I don't like that it rhymes."
Oh,
And I immediately got up. I was like,
became incandescent.
it's meant to fucking rhyme. That's the whole point of it." And then the lecturer rewrote it, not rhyming. And I made a pact with a bunch of people that on the night we just performed my one, and we did.
Oh, what was the kickback from that? Any
Oh,
repercussions?
she just continues to hate me. She was, but the other one that really sticks out to me, and I still feel guilty about this, right? And it's God, if I was in year three at school, it's 27 years ago,
Hmm.
something like that. It was a creative writing lesson, exam rather, and I basically just transcribed the beginning of Castlevania 64 for the N64, and strapped an ending on because they said you've got 5 minutes left. But like really midway through what was happening, just slapped on an ending. And I might be maybe I did add some details or whatever, but I got a really good mark for it, and I feel bad about it to this day.
Why?
Because I know I can do it better than that. I think
Yeah,
knowing that you can
yeah,
do something and then not doing it is far worse than cheating at something because you can't.
yeah. I think that's again that's a fairly important lesson, isn't it? Like
Mm.
the idea of like ripping other stuff off and then being forced to uh as you sort of said, like just bolt ending on at
Yeah.
at a wrong moment. It sort of jangles against sensitivities a little bit, doesn't it? Um, but I think I mean I did some ridiculous shit like that at university. Like there was one where I submitted a paper an essay on well nothing because I just run out of time
Yeah.
because I was doing all sorts of other uh, essays and all the rest of it. It was sort of big crunch deadline week. I really did not enjoy that module. Um, Knew that I was likely to get a sort of fairly biased mark against myself because, like you, I also sort of tore a bit of a path through university in terms of like
Yeah.
who, who was friendly and who was very unfriendly, and often they were the same people for us. Then on the deadline, I read the rules really carefully, and basically all you had to do in order to not get a did not submit, and if you got a DNS, then you couldn't resubmit, and you just got
Yeah.
a fail. So all you had to do was so you had to submit something. So I submitted a title, an empty first page, a word count of 0, and a bibliography of the things that I'd read during the course. And it was about 4 or 5 pages long, and that was
Yeah.
about it. And obviously
Man.
it got a fail, but it meant that by their rules I could resubmit, which meant that I had another month.
I mean, that's smart.
It is smart, but at the same time, it's like, why are you even at university if you're going to treat it like this? It's 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 an enormous amount of debt to take on to not take it seriously.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
bizarre.
I I have a lot of issues with, and you went beyond, didn't you? You've got a master's,
I did.
but I was told while I was there that your undergrad, you were not allowed to have opinions. You could only cite the opinions of people who had already, achieved beyond that. And when you had if you were doing a master's, then you could begin to develop your own opinions. And I was
That's not true.
firm in my response to that. But I guess that's what happens when you're studying. It's very strange to be studying something like theatre and
Mm.
get told that there's a right and a wrong when it comes to performance. 'Cause I quite firmly disagree.
I guess some people are very prescriptive in the way that they choose to teach and impart knowledge.
Yeah.
But well, I mean, it's a more general point, and we're way off topic here. But our education system in this country is not set up to breed independent thinkers.
Oh no.
So, why would that change just because you're suddenly paying for it yourself?
True.
It should, obviously, but it doesn't in a lot of cases.
You know, you get a lot of things wrong on this planet.
The fucking aliens here.
Oh, hello.
Excellent.
Am I early? No, you're all right. I'm going to ask Bed first, okay? Bed, I'm going to probe you. Do I have to ask You have to ask the rest. Okay. Or you can give me a book to read to better understand you. What book are you giving to me?
There's only one real answer to this.
Yes?
I think it's got to be The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie.
I'm going to speak now, Alien. I am not surprised at all that was your response.
Yeah,
Not at all.
I feel that there are other contenders that maybe even people that listen to the podcast would be able to. Why is it not? Why is it not a Pratchett book? Why is it not Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Why is it not anything Tolkien's written? But it's just not, because for me, I love the fantasy genre, but it came alive when I encountered true low fantasy, because all of a sudden it had the grime that I needed, the moral turpitude, the intense characterization, the magic. Everything has a cost.
Yeah.
It changed my reading habits. It changed the way that I saw a genre. And I really love imbuing my own writing with my own outlook on that because I chimed with it. I don't try and write like Joe Abercrombie. I write like myself, who got unlocked by realizing that you could write like Joe Abercrombie.
Yeah.
And I think if you know, to better understand me, read that book, and if you don't enjoy it, then you won't enjoy what happens inside my head. If you do enjoy it, then we're gonna get on. Like it's pretty cut and dry for me. Whereas I feel like if somebody reads Game of Thrones, they might get something very different from it than I get from it.
Yeah.
But I think Abercrombie's so unapologetic in the way that he writes his characters that if you don't get some kind of response from that book, then yeah, I'm not for you.
I think the reason I would have called it this before you said it, and it's not something we can really get across in the podcast, but when you talk about Joe Abercrombie's work, there is a light in your eyes, and not in a like, oh, there's a twinkle of happiness, but it's like the edge of a dagger being drawn in your eyes.
Yeah,
And you then got me to get the audiobook of this book, and I'd been listening for maybe 4 minutes, and I thought, this is the foundation that was poured into every tabletop roleplay session that Ben has ever GM'd for me, and I'm not mad about it at all. It
yeah.
it works, and it's really cool that you found something that speaks to you in that way and kind of opened a door that you could walk through and say, yeah, this is my sort of baseline setting, and I can build worlds in a place like this. I think that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't. Well, what what book can we better understand you with, Alien? Mm. War and War by Alien Sun Tzu.
I would have also accepted War of the Worlds. I feel like anything
Wow, wow.
anything where the aliens are really active. I
You
feel like
you know they all died of a cold, and that's rude. That would never happen. My immune system is too powerful. What about you, other human? I've got a fucking name. All right. Um, I think for me, it's probably The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
okay.
and that's a tough call. Like, there's so much Pratchett that I think would explain my sense of humor, but there's something about the those ridiculous run-on sentences and the like all of the puns and the way the jokes are just inversions of what anyone reasonable would think, that just it is my sense of humor in book form. Like
100%.
no books doing the Pangalactic Gargle Blaster, but that is exactly the kind of stupid joke I am making all of the time.
I think and the reason I think that's a good answer here is that I think if I had not read Hitchhikers before I met you, I would have struggled to understand you initially, if that
So
makes sense. As
I
in,
think that's fair.
it's it does just imbue any conversation that we have, or any piece of writing that you're working towards that has any kind of comedic undertone or overtone to it. Your fascinating way to look at the world through a funny as fuck lens. I feel like Douglas Adams did something very similar for you that J. Abercrombie did for me. Like it's
Yeah.
opened a door, and everything after that point is your own, but the door's been opened by somebody else, and that's how it should be, really. Like,
Yeah. I
oh,
think I swear that door was opened by Adams before I read Pratchett. I read The Hitchhiker's Guide,
oh,
and
really? First,
yeah,
mm.
and it was a what? Actually, technically, no. I read the start of Color of Magic first,
Oh,
and just
and then bounced off it.
yeah, I just couldn't read it. I just couldn't get into it. And it was actually someone in the Waterstones in Colchester where I was growing up, and I said I didn't like this one. Have you got another book that's funny? And they gave me directed me to. They didn't give me. I had to buy it. A copy of. It was a great big thick volume, which was the trilogy of 5 books, because Douglas Adams,
Yep.
and I devoured it, just absolutely ploughed through it, cry laughing the whole time, and I don't know, something in it. I thought I didn't realize that you could make jokes about this stuff. Like I was obsessed with comedy even as a little kid. I had audio cassettes of knock knock jokes and just loads of joke books, and I'd memorized all of it, and then all of a sudden someone was just kind of the jokes that felt like they were on the fly, that kind of observational humor that I hadn't come across yet, and yeah, it just blew my mind.
And
Loved
rightly,
it.
and rightly so. Yeah, it's so spot on, that answer. I think it's, and also interesting that you encountered Pratchett a little bit first, and then
Yeah.
went down this route. My it's definitely inside our zeitgeist in a quite an extreme way. The other day, I was watching some kind of nature documentary, and it
Yeah.
happened to have a shot of some fjords in it. And the person I was watching it with mentioned, "Oh, those fjords are beautiful," I muttered something about the guy that
Yeah.
makes the fjords, and it's just why, like what a
Why is
strange
that
look.
stuck? Yeah.
Yeah, why? But the reason it's stuck is because it's bloody brilliant,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, it is exactly what that kind of humor and that kind of writing should be. Also, I will say that my first exposure to it was actually through the really well done, I think it was the BBC radio drama of it,
Yes.
that opens with Journey of the Sorcerer by Eagles.
What a great piece of music.
What a fucking, like, and right, get this, for years, and I'm talking like 10, 15 years,
Yeah.
I just thought that was just a banging piece of music at the start of that. Every episode of that dramatization,
Yeah.
I had no idea it was longer than like a minute and a half or whatever they used to it. And then when I
That's
found it, I was like, "Holy shit! There's loads. There's more of it."
and it's so psychedelic.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And that is a perfect pairing of story with music as well, which is so rare when you just get a piece of music that's already written and apply it to something. But they hit the mood exactly right. Probably because Adams was a massive stoner,
I was going to
so it was
ask you,
quite
but
easy to pick.
is that a fact? He was a stoner, was he?
Yes, so he came up with the idea while he was tripping, and he
On
was
what is the question there? Because,
I
like, for
don't
example, you've got
remember.
like Herbert with Dune. That's
Yeah,
all inspired by like magic mushroom trips and stuff.
yeah. Well, no shit.
Yeah.
But the as the story goes, he was walking home, and he had a guide to the area he was in his bag, and was very lost. So he just lay down in a field and sort of clutching this bag with this guide to the local area in it, staring up at the stars, and imagined what it would be like if there was a book that did the same that his guide was doing, but for all of the cosmos. And that's where the idea came from, which
That's
is pretty cool.
that's an apple falling on Newton's head moment, isn't it? That's,
Yeah,
oh, what a wonderful little story. Oh, thanks for that.
it's okay. And you can bugger off now. Okay. It's real, you know. The guide. Oh, oh, he's gone. I hope it's not.
Why?
Mostly harmless. Because
Most.
our footnote's rubbish. I do like the idea. I've always, maybe it's just my anxiety, but I am quite comforted by the "Don't panic" in large red letters on the back. I think that's a great idea. We need that on more things.
There's some solid wisdom in there, including all the stuff about towels.
Always know what your towel is, Ben. Oh,
So I think we can probably move on from there to sort of talk about. I mean, mine was a living writer, but do you have any living writers that inspire you?
there are a good few. I'd say William King's a really big one for me.
Right?
So William King is a big writer of fantasy stuff, but he's done a lot of work for other companies. So he's go in, have a rummage around with the IP. What can I get out of it? And he created the characters Gotrek and Felix in the Warhammer world.
They're big ones for you.
They're big, big, big ones for me. I've got them tattooed massively on my upper arm. And there's something about the way that it started as a series of short stories, and just relentlessly carving out of something as sort of silly and overblown as the Warhammer world, carving a little niche and saying, no, I'm going to make my own lore and I'm going to put this in here and it's going to be popular, and just completely committing to create something. And then he's done it did it for Blizzard with some World of Warcraft stuff, where he was like, yeah, that's a cool character idea, but the character would be much cooler if it was like this. Wrote a novel for them, and then they changed it in the game.
Oh,
And I think that kind of, no, this is how you do something cool, and then just doing it. I love that kind of, and they're
yeah,
silly. They're
that is
silly
cool, isn't it?
stories, and it's cool to see them taken seriously, because it is easy to just do it. And then the big dragon came, and they didn't half whack it on the noggin, but to make that feel like it's actually got some gravitas, that's a fucking great skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking inspiration into more established IP and then making it better,
Yeah,
expanding its borders, conquering new themes and characters and all the rest of it. That's really exciting. I mean, the first thing that popped into my head with the way that you were describing how he would do that is, have you seen Andor, the Star Wars TV show?
God, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, so was my understanding is it was written, directed, produced, everything by a man called Tony Gilroy,
Okay.
who my understanding hadn't done any Star Wars things before, and but is sort of like emerging mega auteur,
Yeah.
and it very much seems to me like this man took the big Disney money and all the Disney resources and ruined Star Wars for everybody else because it was so compellingly told, so tightly woven and riveting that I know people that have said they can't watch the newer Star Wars stuff that's coming out because Andor was just too good and it's still too fresh in their minds. And so if you can do that for an IP like Warhammer or the Blizzard stuff for World of Warcraft, then for a start it's a big market, and secondly, it's really cool because you've actually brought artistic integrity to something that's largely written off as being very sort of bubblegum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frivolous is the correct word rather than bubblegum.
I'll allow it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, for me, which living writer inspires you? It would be disingenuous to say it's not Joe Abercrombie after everything that I just said about him. But a second answer, and one that I believe to be very true, is Robin Hobb / Megan Lindholm.
Felt it coming.
Yeah. I think my first exposure to, no, I think I did read Robin Hobb first, actually. But there's a quote by George Martin that went on the book jacket of, I think it was Assassin's Apprentice, the first of her Fitz and the Fool stuff.
Yeah.
And it went something along the lines of, Robin Hobb's books are diamonds in a sea of zircons. And
It's a great quote, isn't it?
it's a fantastic quote, and George Martin is a wonderful writer when he actually chooses to be. But Robin Hobb writes week in, week out, a book a year, and has done for fucking ages. She's written first person, third person limited, YA, more adult focusing, somewhere in between as well.
Yeah.
She's done huge amounts of world building in her sort of Six Duchies universe. And it's all done with this just like care and attention and love, almost like a gardener with a green thumb, just sort of gently nurturing everything so that it's as full a story as it possibly can be.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's possible for me to write like Robin Hobb does. but she inspires me to want to take care of everything.
Yeah.
And
That's,
yeah, I from everything that I've read about her, she appears to be an absolutely lovely person who gets, she lives this wonderful life on like a homestead.
yeah.
Um, and I might say she's got a big family, and she's written these just incredible works of fantasy literature, and largely did it at a time where there was just a huge saturation of fantasy novels, and you'd pick up something like the Dragonbone Chair or whatever it's called, and you get fucking 10 pages of elf names, and it used to make me want to throw it at the fucking wall because it's so stupid, and you're hiding what's good about your story by doing that.
Yeah.
Start immediately putting everybody off that was already going to dismiss fantasy as genre, which people still do, despite the massive success of Game of Thrones and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and Witcher, of course.
I mean, even on that, I've got people that I work with who are not that much older than me, who've not seen Game of Thrones, not watched Lord of the Rings. Some of them haven't watched Star Wars, and they always say, "Oh, it's just all goblins and stuff, isn't it?" I think what's wrong with framing a narrative in a way that fantasizes it slightly, because the stories are still compelling, even if some of the people are green. It's it blows my mind that people do just say, "Oh, don't do that space stuff,"
Are you,
or
are you saying that? Are you saying that people that don't enjoy the fantasy genre are inherently bigoted and perhaps racist?
yes, put it on paper. I
Very
want
good.
that on my tomb.
But I think just going back to that quote, like uh, George Martin was entirely correct. Like the that was how that genre of literature should have been written, and she just went and did it with very little public acclaim, from what I could tell. Like she didn't
Yeah.
get the big TV show that George Martin got, and also that now Joe Abercrombie's getting. I think he's getting a movie deal.
Okay.
Um, didn't get the big bucks from working for like Warhammer or whatever. Like just did her own, told her own stories, and yeah, it's an absolute inspiration, and
Do
I
you
definitely
think
wish her all the best.
do you think any of that comes down to the perception of gender in the fantasy writing world?
Well, potentially, I heard a talk once about why she chose the name Rob because it's a pseudonym Robin Hobb,
Yeah.
and I think, and my understanding is that part of the reason was that it was a bit sort of ambiguous. It was a
Yeah.
bit sort of a genderless name, that evoked things like hobbits
Yeah.
and Robin Hood,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you see what I mean? Like even with her own name, she took an enormous amount of care to cultivate exactly the kind of story it was telling. Um, and I don't know whether that got around some of the, maybe if there were existing gender biases and such, maybe it got around it a bit more. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you. She'd have to tell you. But I think her Megan Lindholm stuff is largely aimed at a younger audience.
Yeah.
So maybe there is something to that. I don't know. I don't know. It's
Well, I
sad to
mean,
think about
mm,
people losing, valuable contracts, and also like time to focus on their work when they're creating such beautiful things, simply because of their gender or race or something. It's just absolutely.
it's mad.
It's fully fucked up, and it always has been. I mean, it's a complete truism, but
That's what I'm.
you do just wonder, like, what state would the canon be now if everyone had been allowed to contribute to it for a very
Yeah.
long time? Because it'd be better. It would straight up be
Oh yeah,
better.
of course it would. Like
Um,
there's nothing to be lost from allowing everyone to have a voice. You still pick out the good
yeah,
voices
just makes it more
when you get to the
competitive.
end, but yeah.
Yeah,
And it's why I'm glad that you've chosen not to go by Sasquatch brindle cheese on here.
it was a
That's
close thing. It was a close
yeah,
thing.
it suits you, but
So
so
it conjures the correct aroma.
ah yes, the brindle, the rich brindle. Um, this one I think we're gonna go a bit RP themed with this because we don't really have
Yeah,
enough stuff out there that is long form for us to have done this. But
it's true.
have you ever associated a song or piece of music with one of your characters?
Mm. So I think to be like completely clear about this, we're talking about tabletop role playing games here. So we're
We
talking
are.
your D&Ds, your sword and sorcery stuff. your cyberpunks, your mutants and masterminds, all that kind of jazz, which has been uh, brought into the mainstream quite considerably in my adult life through like actual like live play series and stuff like that.
Stranger Things has done a lot
Yeah,
for D&D, isn't it? Yeah.
exactly, all that kind of stuff. But the way that I've always approached that kind of gaming, it's very intense. It's basically an opportunity for myself and a few people very close to me to tell a story together. It's like a live writer's room with consequences as determined by dice rolls. So there are very few games that exist on the planet that I think beat the human imagination, and this
Mm.
gives that a form. So inside that, it's a bit of a pressure cooker situation with all the characters. It's very easy to get lost. It's very easy to just be yourself rather than your character.
Yes.
So the bit that comes in next is how do you become a character in order to basically improv act as them. That you need touchstones for that, and I think music is a big one. I think it's massive. I
I
would
think
say though, it's the it's I use music more when I'm being the game master, the person in the
yeah.
chair, than I am when I'm just myself. Because if you can focus on just one character, you potentially don't need lots of audio stimuli.
Yeah.
But if you're having to bring to life lots of little characters, it kind of helps to have a vibe for them. And music is the incredible vibe maker.
I think that's one of the ways it works so well is that if the players have started to associate a piece of music with certain characters or places or moods, it then just becomes part of your toolkit, doesn't it? You can,
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean,
sting.
there's a piece of music that Ben and I know very well called "The Light of the Seven"
Ah, yeah. So that's
from
from the Game
Game
of
of
Thrones TV
Thrones,
show. Yeah.
and legitimately, everyone in our group gets a little bit nervous if it starts playing. And that could be, it might just be in a playlist. We've got it on in the background, we're all having a chat, and it starts, and everyone gets a little bit sort of eyes twitchy, checking each other. So,
It's like casting a spell.
yeah,
Uh, it, music and um, in particular, I feel like things that don't have lyrics. So it is just the concept of music. I think here, yeah, there's very few ways better for like suddenly changing the mood in a room, like
yeah.
beyond like a sudden act of violence or leaving it. If you want to change the vibe in a room, music is a better way to understand where everyone's at.
And it's such a universal language. It's fascinating how
Yeah,
universal the language of music is. Because you play Rip and Tear from the Doom soundtrack, everyone knows. Oh, this is a fight. This is something is going down because it just exudes that energy. It's why things like the Planet Suite are still so
yeah,
impressive
yeah.
because you get the mood of what each of these planets is meant to be just with musical notes. And then I mean, those have gone on to inspire. If you look at most of the Star Wars soundtrack, it's inspired by the Planet Suite. Some of it very directly.
I think it'd be fascinating. Obviously, you're a musician and a singer, but I think it would be fascinating as for us to see if there were any composers that we could talk to, because their outlook on the kind of story that they're trying to tell with their music without any words
Yeah,
would be a fascinating insight. I think for exactly the reason that you just hit on.
yeah. Well,
Um,
any
I think that
composers who are listening,
yeah, absolutely.
do let us know.
Or any recommendations for people that we should try and get
Oh yeah.
and see if they want to come on and talk to us. So, and yourself? Is there any like one bit of music or one song?
I don't think any one. I mean, there are. If I could like pick out characters. A great example is, I think it was last year we played Cyberpunk 2077 or Cyberpunk Red. It's called, isn't it? The
Cyberpunk Red, I think is the name of the thing. Yeah.
the tabletop system. And you did a great thing where as we built the characters, you said, "Hey, everyone, give me the song that is the song that happens in your character's head when things kick off, and give me the song that would play when they died." And then we started playing, and I kind of forgot about it, and then they happened, and that, like, so that character, for example, I really have So it's Kai Tagata by Alien Weaponry. So the character was Mari, and when I hear that song still, I think about the character,
Mm.
and I think that it's kind of the wrong way round, but it's for me a lot of the time the piece of music will play, and I'll remember the character rather than reading the character and thinking of the piece of music. Especially the Lord of the Rings soundtrack is, first of all, one of the most brilliant collections of pieces of music ever crafted.
I mean, Howard Shaw just completely nailed the brief there. It just absolutely amazing.
Talking about subconscious storytelling there, the fact that different groups of people have parts of the orchestra assigned to them, and
Yeah.
it's, I mean, that truly is storytelling through music, and
Especially because just there's another bit to that, which is that in the Lord of the Rings, a lot of characters have important songs that they sing at
yeah,
various points, and much of that got cut from the theatrical, Peter Jackson movies.
yeah,
But the vibe of the songs that they would sing went into the soundtrack around that
yeah.
character scenes.
I mean,
Like for example, the Lament of Boromir isn't in the movies,
no,
but that whole sequence where Boromir gets shot, and just after he's sort of forsaken his virtue to and fallen to the ring's power to try and steal it from Frodo. That whole it's evoked. It works, like, and you know what scene it's from even without looking at the movie.
yeah. I think
Um,
the sort of stirring uh, Theoden speech at Pelennor Fields,
oh yeah.
that piece of music, God, it does not get me hyped.
Yeah.
When your brain starts giving it a ride on, ride, you're like, yep, I'm riding on.
I guess I guess I'm charging.
I
Oh,
guess I'm gonna die like a true Aerlingus.
I
That's
think
where
it's
we're at.
it's such a wonderful thing to be excited and inspired by music. I think, like,
Mm,
I must do it every day in one shape or form. Um, and I feel like my existence would be massively reduced without it.
yeah,
Um, so it's very important. It's very important. And one day I hope that there's songs and pieces of music that remind me of characters from larger stories that I've written. Um, but for the moment, I think it's it is contained to more of the TTRPG stuff.
yeah,
So when you're reading things that aren't Douglas Adams, that aren't George Martin, that aren't Joe Abercrombie, that aren't Robin Hobb, that aren't Pratchett,
yeah,
but around in you're finding new authors, you're finding new genres, perhaps.
yeah.
What themes do you find particularly appealing?
I really love anything with speculative tech. Really love. There's a great book called The Feed, which is about everyone having essentially a tiny router in their brain.
Mm-hmm.
And this book's quite old now, but I just absolutely fell in love with this idea that everyone's like bedroom is completely white, but you'll be like, oh, I'm really into this band at the moment, and you'll pay 50p or whatever, and then their posters on the wall. So like your whole world is DLC, and when they go to
uh,
the mall, when they go in, based on things they've bought before, they get pop-ups in their vision saying, oh, this store's having a sale, or this store's doing this. And there's a great sequence in it where the female lead says, "Come on, we're gonna fuck up the algorithm." So they just go to stores randomly and pick things up till the algorithm can't figure them out anymore.
when was this written?
Uh, I'm not that recently because I read it as a kid. Let's see if I can find it.
Because that sounds like current social commentary, doesn't it? With the way that
Uh,
the like YouTube algorithm and other like more social media algorithms and stuff dominate
so
a large amount of the time we spend on our phones.
so it's by Matthew Anderson. It's called Feed, and it came out in 2002.
2002. Wow. So I remember. Do you remember the movie Minority Report, which is based on a Philip K. Dick short
Yeah,
story? Had Tom Cruise and stuff in it. I really like that movie. I think it does hold up. But there's a bit in it where he's had his eyes replaced with somebody else's eyes to avoid detection.
yes,
And he goes into a mall and he gets the ads that belong to that eye,
yeah.
those eyes. And that's basically exactly the kind of spec that you're talking about there, isn't it? And I'm just wondering whether and now I feel like I need to do a deep dive and know whether that came from the Philip K. Dick original
Maybe.
works, or when somebody was adapting, did they get inspired by Feed?
Yeah, like, oh, I want to know.
Either way is exciting. Either way is exciting. But I like
Yeah,
that. I like that one a lot.
but it's
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 speculative tech.
especially when it's rooted in real science. So I absolutely love the Forever War books because of all the time dilation FTL stuff in them. Because it's a way to add stakes that are real stakes. Because the laws of physics will only bend so far. So when you actually have to play by them and you start seeing what comes from it when you push them, I think that's always fascinating. They do get a bit weird, those books, and a little bit of
You can read the first one in a bit of a vacuum and avoid the the subsequent descent into bigotry that Haldeman experienced.
yeah,
Um,
they get not great.
well, actually, no. The books are still very well written. It's just that the content
The
is
opinions are not, yeah,
the opinions and the content are very old fashioned. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a huge amount more to be said on that one really, aside from the
yeah,
fact that the Forever War is a fucking banging novel,
yes,
and this idea of a like an interstellar war and what relativity would do to a war
yeah,
is a fascinating thing to have explored through the lens of one character.
yes.
Um,
What about for yourself though? So obviously we know you like your low fantasy. We know you like a bit of politics in there, but what else? What tickles your pickle?
so it's people. So rather than something like tech or even something like certain like plot arcs or anything like that,
Yeah.
it's always about people for me. So
Okay.
anything that drills down into why people do things, and importantly, how what that looks like to somebody else. Like that method of understanding that happens when you suddenly realize why someone's doing what they're doing in real life or in fiction
Yeah.
is such an exciting moment for me. Um, because it's it can be a feeling of closeness, it can be a feeling of fear. It can do a lot. It can almost run the whole sort of gamut of emotion, really.
Yeah.
Um, but to that end, I have realised that I really like well two main things in inside fiction, inside stories. The first is when you have one person next to somebody else, and that somebody
Yes.
else is very important or is going to do great things, but the actual story is from the point of view of the person next to them,
Yeah.
and their whole existence is consumed with this struggle to understand and uh, either be loved by or defeat this other person. That's really exciting to me. That's really good. The second is how that can be turned into a narrative that actually works,
Yeah.
um, and it's a pressure cooker. So I like when people are trapped inside a city that's under siege. I like when they can't get out of their car because if they get out of their car, there's the whole world will end or something.
Yeah.
I like things like that that force people to behave in the way that they truly feel.
I like that.
And you sort of get where I'm going with that. Like,
Yeah. You want to see people laid bare by the
yes,
situations they're in.
that's a far more eloquent way of putting that. Yeah, that was a degree of waffle for exactly what you just said. Yeah,
I'm just condensing what's been fed to me. Don't worry. I
I
can.
was live writing it. Yeah, no, laid bare. Because I think at the end of the day, like that's one of the main reasons that stories exist. I think for me, it's to that they can be didactic to a
Yeah.
certain degree. Like you can learn a lot about the human condition through novels. Um,
I think it's
it-
especially
yeah,
because those kind of stories where you are seeing people in that way, you get to see them warts and all. Like The interesting characters are the ones who do ugly things, even if they're not ugly people. Either because their hand is forced, or because they need to gain something from it, or seeing a character put in a position where they have to make that choice is always the most interesting thing, isn't it?
It
Because
is.
if they just get to skip from heroic action to heroic action, there is a place for it. In things like Lord of the Rings, it's really good to see the heroic characters just being heroic, but then they're counterbalanced. It's why Aragorn and Boromir make such an interesting pair of characters. What's the quote, isn't it? Aragorn is who we want to think we are, but Boromir is who we really are.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. No. No. This is it. I feel like this is the crux of, you know, really why I tell stories, why I write stories. I think a big part of it is to try and show my lens on the world and dig down into human behaviors in very difficult and interesting situations.
Yeah. When you are writing those stories, Ben, what tropes do you avoid? See that? See how professional that was, Ben. And I fucked it
It
by
was very professional.
pointing out the professionalism.
I actually don't think I actively avoid any tropes.
Yeah.
I think I just fear that I've transgressed into some imaginary land where, oh no, you can't do that. Oh no, anyone that does that trope is shit. That's poor writing if you do that. Like, those are the kind of big sticks that I occasionally hit myself with when I'm writing.
The trope-a-dope, if you will.
The trope-a-dope, yeah, exactly. But as we've had from several of our guests, like, and actually I've found their advice very useful here. There is no bad tropes. There's only bad writing, really.
Yeah.
So if you lazily deploy a common trope, you've done yourself a disservice. We were talking earlier about that feeling of knowing you could have done better.
Yes.
That's exactly what that is. And I mean, I can see why some people do it. Well, for a start, some people just deploy the tropes and they're exploring them for the first time, and they're like the progenitors of it, basically.
Yeah.
And now that gets dismissed as lazy. Like, I don't know, maybe J.K. Rowling would be a good example here. Like,
Yeah.
she's obviously she's now very well known for a very different thing, but even before that all kicked off, there was a sense that the Harry Potter series isn't good writing. It's not good storytelling. It's not really an interesting world when you look too deeply at it, with people picking apart, well, this is the influence from that, this is where this came from, this is the story she based that on.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, she collated all of that. She put her own spin on it. She created this world that has captured an enormous audience for decades.
Yeah.
It's incredibly successful, and it's very unfortunate, I think, that the way that the sort of the various hills that she's chosen to socially die on.
Yeah.
Because it
I
makes it
think
very difficult to talk about. But yeah,
a big thing
she's a very
is
important writer.
big thing it's suffered from as well is there are a lot of people who are a bit too grown up to be really hard discussing Potter, pulling the books apart still, looking for enormous amounts of subtext in
Oh, looking for
what
deep
are
meaning.
children's magic school books.
Mm,
And they are absolutely fine for that. And for a lot of young people, it's a great way to introduce them to some of those tropes and those
yeah, yeah,
concepts. And it's a shame that there are a lot of people, especially our age, because we grew up with those books. I think I was pretty much in the same school year as Harry most of the time.
yeah. I think you were.
And there are a lot of people I went to school with who are now in their 30s, still treating it like it's the greatest piece of literature they've ever read. And I loved them as a kid. But I've gone on and read other books and expanded on what I learnt there. And I'm not saying you can't love them, they can't be your favourites, but they are not the only piece of worthy literature. And
No,
there are, I think, too many people treating them as though they are.
no. I think you're right. And all I can say is that those people should try other things. They should
Read a fucking book.
No, they've already read books. These are
That's true.
people that
I'm
but
being
they've
mean.
but they have just like latched on to this one series, and I'm hoping that this is something that other people are aware of in their lives when we're talking about this. But I know people like that as well, and I know other people who have said, "Oh shit, that kind of person." It's
Yeah.
definitely a type of people, and all of them should just pick up Robin Hobb. All of them. They would immediately get on with all of Robin Hobb's books.
Yeah.
And potentially some of that massive acclaim and fame that was ultimately potentially placed in the wrong hands could go to an author who's got some more, should we say, balanced morals.
Yeah.
But in terms of tropes, Harry Potter is the archetype for the chosen one narrative now.
Oh yeah.
You can explain that narrative trope to people by saying Harry Potter. So
Mm.
it's synonymous. So that's the fear, isn't it? You think when you're writing something, you're like, and have I written Harry Potter? Because if I have written Harry Potter, I've fucked up.
So right, I'm going to teach you a magic trick. If you feel like that's happening, have them shag their own mum, and then you've written Oedipus, not Harry Potter. Easy.
Surely they should be shagging someone else, so they aren't any of these characters. Like, what happens if they fuck their horse?
Then they are. Oh God, what's that bloody play called that Harry Potter was also in? Equus.
Then they're still Harry Potter.
Then they're still Daniel Radcliffe.
How about you? Tropes that you actively avoid.
I think there's only one that I consciously avoid, and that's magic gay best friend. And it's
Magic
a
gay best friend. Have you got an example of that?
it was in quite a lot of stuff in the noughties, especially in TV.
Uh huh.
But it's they've got a friend who's a gay guy, and he's brilliant at everything, and he can do everything, and he's always there with the advice.
Oh, okay, right.
And
I think I know where. Yeah, okay, I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
I have gay friends who said it just we're just people.
You're allowed to be bad at things,
Yeah, like
or need to learn things rather than just be instantly good at them.
it's more interesting if maybe the main character could be gay and be going to a friend for advice, or and it's really true. It was a big thing for a while, especially in and I love chick flicks. Got a real soft spot for them.
What's your
But
favorite?
they're Legally Blonde, easy, no hesitation.
Oh wow.
Love Legally Blonde. But yeah, there was this huge wave, and it's gone down a lot now, which is cool. But of having that, the one gay friend who, at the end, they'll come in and say, "Well, you know what you've done wrong, and it's this magic gay advice that I'm going to give you." And yeah, it was always very disingenuous and normally just kind of saccharine and magical in a way that everyone's just like, no, we'd like to be represented as actual people. That would be great, instead of queer genies that appear at the end and say, what you should have done is this, honey, and then fix the problem.
There is something to be said for things that indulge a power fantasy as well, aren't they? Like, I'm wondering whether there was something else going on inside the deployments of that trope where it was. Is it potentially like trying to swing it too hard the other way
Oh, maybe.
after decades of we've said the word bigotry a lot in this episode, by the way, when we've been talking about our own stuff. That's
Oh no.
but typically it's sort of outlined where we've turned away from various inspirations and sources. I think, for example, Joe Haldeman, uh, J.K. Rowling, and others. But maybe it was like they swung too hard in the other direction. They were like, well, let's give this particular group a chance at being the ones that can just fix everything. But and
Make
because this
sure
also happened with the kick-ass chick, or whatever you want to call her, like there was
the
this,
the Mary Sue in inverted commas,
yeah,
that
that
kind
kind of
of.
thing, yeah. But it's no different than Bruce Willis in Die Hard. Like
No.
it, the power fantasies are inherently quite 2D because there's no depth, because there's no chance of failure. So I can definitely see why you would avoid that in your writing for sure,
Yeah.
because I don't think it's a fairly quick way to make sure that your characters are one note.
Yes.
And that's the opposite of what your writing is like. So,
well, I'm glad.
I think we can potentially. We're going to just cut this bit, but I think we could potentially. We've actually been going for an hour.
Yeah.
So I think this is an episode already.
Yeah, it's just so it's been lovely having this chat. And
yeah, should we do that?
Yeah. It's been nice to ask each other these questions. We did it back in series 1, but we've never since opened each other up. So it's quite nice to see.
Has it been that long, really?
Yeah. Literally the first episode we did that. So
wow. Yeah, no, I think it's important to take a look at. And you could ask me these questions in 6 months, a year's time, and I'll probably give you maybe variations on it, but a lot of these answers will be the same.
Yeah.
Or you've got to remain open to the fact that things change as well. You know, opinions can shift. You might encounter something else that inspires you in a different way that's more important to you at the time. But I think recognizing what you're trying to channel, what's working for you, is really vital when you're trying to be creative. Otherwise, you end up like all stoppered up and tense.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm for myself, I'm really keen to see more of your writing and to see you grow as a writer, and all the other ways that one wants their friends to have a good life.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're really in the middle of a big journey here with this podcast, and it's been really special for me to be a part of this with you and get to tell all these stories and do all this writing and do things that wouldn't necessarily have done if this podcast didn't exist. So I'm really grateful both to you and to everybody that listens that we get to.
I feel very much the same. It's been really nice to watch, from one side as just your friend off mic, watch you building your novel and have you talk to me about it in a very straight, friend talking about work kind of way. But then get to once a week turn on a microphone and talk about it in this way and talk about your writing process and listen to you deploy skills you've picked up and put into play lessons we've had we've had some incredible guests on.
We have, yeah.
They have taught us so many little things about writing that we didn't know, because how could you know until someone told you? And it's been amazing to do what we've done so far. I can't wait to do more.
Absolutely. Love to you, love to the fans.
Doing under the table. I never left. I'm so lonely.
I definitely don't love that little prick. So weird.
Wow.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For magnificent beardery, let's cast the Chinicus folliculale spell on Gary Laird. For rich ginger tones on the scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?